Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today we're going to make this platter. To get this started, this is the design that I came up with. It's going to be made out of mostly walnut, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slices of the pie. So we'll have to cut those segments. Then we're going to drill out these holes and then hand cut on the bandsaw this maple part. I got some walnut and some maple from my friends at KenCraft. The very first thing I need to do is cut out these slices of the pie over at the table saw. But I'm gonna use the laser cutter to make myself a jig to get that perfect angle. You don't have to have a laser for this. You can make this on the table saw or the bandsaw. The laser is just super accurate and allows me to make this quickly and move on to the next step. The piece that we cut out on the laser, I can use that to set my miter fence here. Tighten that down. And then we can use this to push the board through the blade. Now, we don't need our blade up that high. What are we trying to prove? Draw a center line on there, and then we're going to come in this far. And that is where we're going to drill a hole. Now we're going to glue this up with some wood glue and some CA glue. So we're using the wood glue for strength and the CA glue as a clamp. So now we're going to drill a smaller hole at the center. Before drilling that out, I should have marked our outside circle. So now I'm doing it the more difficult way. We have this piece of maple and we need to make these little parts right here. So I'm going to cut these out, use some spray adhesive to attach it to this, and then cut them out over on the bandsaw. I think we're just going to take some CA glue and glue it onto this piece of plywood. I chose this cherry plywood because it's got a nice soft core, which will be easier to turn away later. The Baltic birch is a lot more dense and thick and might be harder to turn. So let's go grab some glue. And just kind of eyeball it till it looks center. So now that those pieces are glued in there, I want to draw a circle around the outside. I'm going to take this gauge block and tape it to the pencil. You're probably wondering why I didn't put this in the corner so I wouldn't waste so much wood. I'm wondering the same thing. This is some aluminum tape used in the HVAC world. And this is going to be this is going to create our little reservoir. Now we're going to mix up the epoxy. We're going to use the thick set, which you can pour a lot deeper than the other stuff. We've been mixing for 2 minutes in this one, so now poured it into another cup. We're just going to do a little bit of that. That's probably too much. And a little bit of that. So this stuff is a lot thinner than what I'm used to, and it gets into all the little nooks and crannies. So this is going to set for a few days before we turn it on the lathe. So we're just gonna set this over here and let it do its thing. Guy has been curing for a few days. It's looking good. It's looking like our original drawing. The weird thing is it glued itself to our sacrificial board. I was just using this board to keep the epoxy from getting on my bench, and now it's permanently part of that. So I need to take this over to the bandsaw and cut this out. We'll remove the foil tape. Then we're going to screw on the lathe chuck to the back and turn it on the lathe. But one thing that I'm worried about is getting this perfectly centered. If it's not perfectly centered, I'm gonna have this, you're gonna see the outside where the epoxy is closer to the wood on one side and further on the other side. I'm a little worried about that. We'll just deal with it if it happens. Another way around that is I could take a small drill bit and drill all the way through to the other side, and no, that would be my circle. But let's take a chance. Let's experiment. Let's have some fun. Can we just have some fun? Is it okay if we just have fun today? Maybe this doesn't work. Who knows? So looking really good. I want the edges to be a little bit thinner. I couldn't get any thinner on here because the jaws are in the way. So I'm just gonna take this over to the... Before we polish this guy up, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with more than 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. A premium membership gives you unlimited access so you can join the classes and communities that are just right for you. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, creativity, or even career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving. I designed this project in Adobe Illustrator, and I use Skillshare to brush up on some techniques. For example, I didn't know how to get these circles to rotate and space evenly around the center, so I hopped on Skillshare.com. Skillshare is also super affordable, and annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. The first 500 of my makers will get a 2-month free trial. Thank you, Skillshare, for making today's video possible. Let's get this guy polished up. I'm just gonna keep doing this until I feel that there's enough coats to get a good glossy shine on there. So now we're gonna sand it and put on a 3rd coat. There it is. The walnut and maple came from my friends at KenCraft. You can check them out at kencraftcompany.com. The inspiration for this design came from an old school film reel. That's why it's got the 5 holes with the hole in the center there. This has about 5 coats of shellac and 1 coat of wax, sanded up to 320, and then using these abrasive pads to get that shine. I've got a video on that. There'll be a link to that down below. Links to all the tools and supplies will be down in the description, including the total boat epoxy that I used for this. We'll see you guys in a few days with a brand new project. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something.